What's up, guys? I'm back. Let me check my sound and my chat filter. See what else. Yeah. Yeah, this looks good. What is this? What's this do? Um, yeah, I thought this was a. I tried to create some sort of AI thing. That didn't work. Um, Let me try a different one. Yeah, that worked, but this one doesn't. Mm, just playing with these for a second. How's this? A little too much. What's thermo? Oh, oh. All right. Anyway, Shane Legs. Uh, hey, says when you're surrounded by large amounts of people who hate you and literally want you dead, you tend to get a little trigger happy. Yeah, and that's kind of you kind of beat me to the punch, Shane, because that's actually where I was kind of that's actually where I was going to go with this whole live. I, I, you beat me to the punch. I didn't even get to announce the topic, but yeah, right. But yeah, I can see where we're kind of on the same wavelength here. So yeah, guys, the topic is, has ice gone too far? And I'm like, at this point, and I keep trying to say this, and it seems to go over a lot of people's heads who just hate ICE or hate Trump or hate the government. And it's like, I mean, I'm not a fan of the government either, but I don't hate law enforcement officers, and I don't hate Trump, and I don't hate conservatives. Um, it's like I, it's frustrating to explain. Like the guy that keeps saying murdered that lady. First of all, like like I said, if 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 these groups were able to do, if these groups tried to do what they do to ICE to other law enforcement, they would be considered a threat and handled um, expediently. But ICE puts up with a lot of stuff that other law enforcement personnel do not have to deal with on a day to day. They have, watchdog groups that follow ICE, harass them, impede their investigations, um, sometimes uh, physically attack them, and then resist arrest. And they think, and these these little silly white liberal women think, well, just because I'm a woman and I'm up, and I'm come from an upper middle class background, you can't arrest me. Okay. It's astounding what people think they can get away with. Like, people think ICE is an illegitimate agency. Like, look, you got you, not you per se, Shane, but or you guys in the chat room. Um, for the people who have a problem with ICE, either you or your parents should have not voted Trump, and I mean, shouldn't have voted Bush into office back in 2000. Department of Homeland Security and ICE came out of the Patriot Act of 2003. So did, um, you know, wiretapping Americans, um, setting up big data centers to collect all any data of Americans. If you're gonna be mad at Bush. Even more so, be mad at Clinton. He he enacted in 1996 this Immigration Act, which established and expanded all this aggressive immigration enforcement that we see today. That happened under Clinton in 1996. But because many of you are Gen Z and millennials and you're historically illiterate, you don't like you think all this was done under Trump. Not to mention Obama still deported more people and had them in those little detention centers at the border. But you guys gave him grace because he's black or pretend to be black, and he sang little spirituals at some Georgia church, and he supported DACA. He supported DACA while still deporting shitloads of immigrants. Um, Someone says I don't know what I'm talking about. Suck a dick, Phil Dashbert 99. Shane says those white liberal women try to use their non-existent white privilege as a shield. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying because people were mad the other day when I brought up white privilege, but I was using it. I wasn't using it to say all white people have white privilege. I was saying that white women in America have. We all know, both black men and white men, Latino men and Asian men. We all know that white women have a higher social status in America. That is, they have a, in other words, they do have privilege, and they use it to get what they want. This is why this is why they turn Karen when they hit middle age, because at that when they become middle age, they realize that they don't men aren't going to pay attention to them anymore. That's when they hit the Karen phase. Uh, the boys. I'm gonna have to put on my reading glasses, guys. I'm sorry. Give me a moment. Un momento, por favor. Un minute, s'il vous plaît. Okay. The boy Sal 1201 says, was Obama supporting Muslims too? What you mean too? Like who else was he supporting? Because I don't remember him supporting anyone but LGBTQ. And even that wasn't something that he originally wanted to do. Biden kind of forced his hand by throwing support to them. So then Obama had to back it. So anyway, I don't know. Um, Lawrence Spa says, "God bless you. Thank you. Appreciate it." Michael Trough says, "Have you seen white women?" Um, who hasn't seen white women? Are you? You must not be American. Like you can't go in America without seeing a white woman. You obviously must be a foreigner. Anyway, Shane says, "Yeah, Clinton fucked up the circular immigration we had going on. Mexicans just came over here to work during the summer and sneak back into Mexico for the rest of the year." Yeah, like I said, people don't know. It's called, I think it's called the IIRIA Act. Some like that. That was the name of the 1996 legislation that went into law. Like I said, he established and expanded upon current immigration enforcement at that time. And basically, every president since then has been using the Clinton playbook from 1996. So everyone wants to blame Trump. Blame Clinton. Y'all love fucking Bill Clinton so much. You Democrats suck on his dick. Be mad at Clinton. He's the one that put that shit into operation. And then Bush expanded upon it through the Patriot Act and created ICE and Department of Homeland Security. Obama kept the same program going under him and deported more people than any other president. And Trump was following in Obama's footsteps. But when Obama did it, it was okay. Then when Trump did it, oh, he's evil and racist and a fascist. Okay, sure. Mm-hmm. Then why did Biden also keep doing it as well? Mm. And now Trump is still continuing it. Again, if you want to go back, if you need if you want to go to the OG, you need to go to Bill Clinton. Shane says I hate white privilege in the Philippines, but it doesn't work in the U.S. Oh, it works in the U.S. Trust me, it just works differently. I get what you're saying about the Philippines, bro. Matt, how do you say Maddie Teeter? Says Jesus loves you, man. Appreciate the spiritual inspiration from you guys. You know, sometimes I get a little down too, so it's nice to know that people are wishing well upon you. You know, the boy tells his white privilege is annoying. Like I said, the only like because I know a lot of white people get offended when people say that, and I get why because the, a typical dude from I don't know, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but this typical dude from Kentucky that was raised in some blue collar home doesn't enjoy that white privilege, right? So I get when they say, "Well, you saying where's my white privilege? What you talking about?" Or my friend who's been on the show a few times, the Real Renegade. Check her out. She has a YouTube channel here, and she's on Rumble, and she's on Twitter or X, and she's on Kick. You can't mistake her. She spells renegade with threes instead of e's, so you wouldn't be able to miss her. But anyway, I know she's posted a tweet saying where's my white privilege because she talks about how she struggles and she lives in a part of Portland that is like straight up hood. So I get it. But what I'm saying, and I think she would agree with this. I wish I could contact her. I haven't talked to her in a few weeks, but I think even she would agree. Yeah, there are some white women that you know definitely have privilege in America. Jackson, what's up? Ornament the word says loves me some pogs. Dude, I don't. Where did you get that from? Unless you're talking about the real renegade, and I don't know. Well, actually, never mind. But yeah, yeah, dude, you on the wrong topic, bro. He's talking about I'm half white, half Asian, nothing better than a fat. Yeah, dude, you need to go, you know, you need to go to one of them online uh forums. I'm not gonna put them out here. Actually, you know what? Look, go to rubmaps.ch and go get you a nice massage and go handle that. Don't bring that horniness over here, bro. That is it's like it's just a pause. Like you talking to another man about you wanting a fat white booty, which I can appreciate. Trust me, but that is not that is not the topic. Go to rubmaps.ch or one of those other type of online columns and either get you a massage from Rub Maps or you can get one of them little $40 entertainers. I'll put it that way. You know that $40 is back on the market. They need their SNAP benefits. Let me stop. um, but yeah, he was on some horny stuff, so I'm not gonna even I'm not gonna laugh. I'm not gonna put those back in the chat room the since they're already hidden. It's just weird. The Boy Sal says Obama's good at saying nonsense in his speeches. He's tricking people by not doing anything too. Yeah, Thomas Sowell has talked about that repeatedly. Thomas Sowell really did not like Obama at all, and it's because he realized that Obama was very articulate at saying bullshit. And Boy says, "Where's my white privilege?" "Quote unquote." He said they have white privilege and they don't even know it. I won't say all white people. Like I said, white privilege is more a social economic status. It's not a racial status. Because, like I said, I, look, being in the military, I've seen a lot of poor white people that came from um, humbler beginnings than I did. And to say that they had white privilege would just be false. Like people who didn't even have like clean water, so they have rotten teeth coming into the military, um, that are inarticulate and have health issues, and just they're just happy to be in the military so they can have a way to feed themselves and their family. So it, I know it's easy to say that it's easy for people who never been anywhere and seen how a lot of people in middle America struggle to say that all white people have white privilege, but it's not true. What I will say is that white women in America do have a loftier status than most folks, and they use it to their advantage when they want. Especially, they use the epitome of their white privilege is in the fact that they can weaponize, that usually they feel comfortable in weaponizing the law against men when they feel fit. White women will weaponize the law against men when they see fit, whether in family court, when it comes to like, divorce and custody and all that sort of stuff, um, or in criminal court where they can yell, you know, RAPE at any guy. So they weaponize the law against men. And so when they see law enforcement doing something they don't like, they they still try to utilize that same white privilege to undermine those law enforcement officers, and this is where they fail. I should buy a 2003 Toyota Corolla. I don't get the joke. That sounds like a sound like that's a Latino joke. Like, a Toyota Corolla with the spoiler on the back. Is that the joke? I mean, I would. You know. Yeah, some guy just went. This one guy just got angry at me. He doesn't even realize that the question in the title is not something I actually support. Not too bright, are you, Patriot Grim, Krista Grim 5510? He says, don't ask people to be civil and respectful when you don't do it yourself, libtard. Real Americans support ICE and don't support illegal criminals. You want more viewers? Don't support liberal bull. Obviously, he doesn't. Obviously, you can see that this person never been to my channel before, or that he doesn't realize the dripping irony in the topic and how I use the topic of this live stream. Too bad intelligence isn't spared on it. It's not spread equally. He's saying talk about black privilege. Dude, go kill yourself. Shut up. I don't even care if I get demonetized for saying that. Shut up. Anyway, uh, so anyways, guys, so again, the topic is, has ICE gone too far? And to be to give you my honest answer, I really don't know. My issue is, why can't these silly protesters and people, and some of them aren't protesters. When you harassing police, you're no longer protesting at this point. You're actually a criminal once you start harassing the police at this point. Because as I stated before, if that idiot criticizing me had bothered to see what I was talking about here, is that no other law enforcement personnel will put up with the amount of disrespect that ICE has to put up with daily. Like, they go into, and then people are like, well, why do you got to hide your face? I mean, because look at what they do. Like, these people will attack ICE agents because, again, they think they're justified in doing so. Not realizing these people are law enforcement officers, and you cannot harass them or attack them or impede their operations just because you dislike them or you don't agree with what they do. That's still a crime. And like I said, if this was done to any other branch of law enforcement, they would get dealt with handily. But ICE, for the most part, treats these people gently. Now, now we've had a few incidents recently with Renee Good, with someone getting their hand shot off, and with this Alex guy. The thing is, those are isolated incidents, and it creates what's called the vividness effect. So the vividness effect is something similar to, like, when you see an airplane crash. All of a sudden, everyone is like, "Oh my God, planes aren't safe anymore." That's one crash out of thousands of flights per day, or hundreds per day, whatever. Out of hundreds of flights per day, one crash, and everyone's freaking out. Like the Joker. I did do that, but yeah. Um, but no one cares or appreciates the fact that there's like thousands of car crashes every day. That you're more likely to die in a car crash than a plane, which is statistically much safer. But it's the vividness effect of a plane going down and crashing that makes it seem like it's it's a like everywhere. It's happening everywhere, and it's not. So same thing with ICE. So ICE ends up shooting someone, and all of a sudden this is thing going on. Like, no, comply. Like black parents used to teach their black sons, and I was no different. My father did the same. They always taught their sons comply, and their daughters as well. But more so their sons. They would teach their kids, when confronted with an officer, be respectful and comply with the officer's orders. That's it. Don't disrespect him. Don't sass him or cuss him out. Don't try to run away from him. If they arrest you, don't say, don't talk, don't say anything. Call us. But for the most part, they said, if you just comply with the officer, you're not going to be in trouble. And that was true. There were many times that, when I was a teenager, I did stupid stuff that could have got me arrested. And the officers let me go. Like, I was speeding once. The officer just pulled up beside me and said, "Hey, slow down." I'm like, "I'm sorry, sir." Or ma'am, it was a female officer. I was like, "Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry." Slow down. She didn't even give me a ticket, not a warning, anything. Um, just many examples. Like, if you're not a dick, the thing is, and then people forget these law enforcement officers are people too. People just see their uniform and forget it's a person in that uniform. And I've always said this. I said this to friends too, like, dealing with police or whomever, or dealing with government bureaucrats of some sort. Remember, it's a person behind that office or that title. Speak to the person. Don't speak to the uniform and the title, and it will go a lot farther than you just treating that person as a a mindless bureaucrat or just some person in the uniform. And these people, like I said, a lot of these protesters are a bunch of um, elite liberals who look down on these law enforcement officers. A lot of law enforcement come from the blue collar and the working class. And these people look, and you have these elite little white liberal women who look down on them and think they can talk down to them like they talk down to men generally, which is why so many of us are going overseas to find better women and better opportunities. Shout out to all the people. I'm not going to say passport bros anymore because I don't support that movement because of all the stuff going on. But shout out to all the expats and global citizens out there who go overseas to find women with better mental software. Um, no.4mk126 says, I hate how divided and dug in we all are. Well, it's not the first time America's been highly divided. Not that that's a good thing, but someone said, they coming for my black ass, huh? Next, huh? Don't be a clown. First of all, suck my dick, Vigo. Suck my dick. Around and around. Make it, just look it like a lollipop in your mouth, like your mother used to. She did it for the love of the game. You can do the same thing. She taught you how to do it. She made sure you were a good cocksucker. But anyway, on to that. I'm Look, all you little faggots out there saying, "Oh, they coming for you black people next." No, they're not. They came for us first. In America, and black people fought. We're not going anywhere. I guarantee my family's been here longer than almost all of you. I can trace my I can trace my family back to the 1600s, to Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of this country, who wrote the Declaration of Independence and was the third president of the United States. I'm more American than you are, Vigo. Shut up, you little peanut puffer. I'm more American than most of all of you. On top of that, black people aren't going anywhere. We're American. At the end of the day, at the end of the fucking day, black and white people are the only true Americans like when you look at the historical documents. We've been over here since 1619. And actually some black folks have been here even before that because we were here in the Spanish colonies. Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We've been here for 400 years. Many of you didn't come over here until the early 1900s or the late 1800s. So if anyone's going to go, you are going to go, Vigo. You're probably not even American. You need to go eat a taco and shut the fuck up. And you're lucky none of my moderators kicked you out of the chat yet. They know I'm going to I'd rather roast you first. But again, more American than you are. And I can trace my lineage to one of the founding fathers of this country. My sister was literally on a documentary by Oprah a long time ago about the descendants of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. So Vigo, go do what you do best, suck dick, and take it up the ass. That's how your father liked it. And I don't care about trolls. At the end of the day, I can fight. You can't. I would beat the shit out of you if you ever saw me in real life. You need to go check my other videos. He doesn't know. You talking to a vet and a guy who's been doing martial arts for the past 30 years. I'm not a clown in real life. Your mother is. Tell her tell her to do some douche next time because her shit was stinking. All right, enough of him. So anyway, guys, you see how people get triggered? And again, and then we had the other clown who thought that I was actually supporting the opposite of what I actually support. The reason I was asking has ICE gone too far is because it's making headlines because of another incident where someone got shot, and now people are saying, well, ICE just flat out murdered this person. And like I said, it comes to a point where, look, ICE isn't stopping people from protesting, but you cannot harass them. You cannot impede their operations. That is not protesting. You cannot put your hands on them. I love that one scene. I don't remember when this happened or whom it was, but when that one woman like slapped the officer and he punched the shit out of her, that was great. That was great. But if any of you Fanukes got a problem, bring it. Like I guarantee Vigo or anyone else who got a problem with me won't come to Baltimore to throw those hands or do whatever they want to do because you're not built like that, and you're not gonna get me in my own city. You none of you little mm, none of you guys are built like that to come to Baltimore. The show The Wire, yeah, that was real life. Yeah, you're not built like that, so don't even try it. Stay wherever you are in your comfy little home out in Indiana or Oklahoma or wherever the fuck you live. You probably or you're probably some little Indian fuck boy. Like don't don't try it. You're not built for it like that. You're not about that life. And I'm not saying I'm about that life, but I'm connected to people who are. So yeah, shut up. Don't try to sound tough online. You're just a troll. You're probably autistic and retarded. And you beat off the Rainbow Bright. So anyway, what's up, Stefan? He said, "Do that in Florida, you get slapped with a felony." Exactly. Like they know where to try this stuff at, Stefan. They're doing it in Minnesota because it's a look, it's a blue city, right? They're not going to do that stuff in Texas or Florida because the local police will support ICE. They do that somewhere like Texas or Florida, somewhere like that, where the local police do support ICE and will assist them in their investigations. Yeah, and guess what? When the local law enforcement assists ICE, things go a lot more smoothly. And that was a point I made a few days ago. Is that when ICE doesn't have the support of the municipal or local government working with them with their law enforcement, it makes their investigations harder. So they have to go in and apprehend suspects. And then often it is the case that when they apprehend these suspects, there are other illegal immigrants living amongst them. So then they just round all of them up. And that wouldn't be the case if if they got assistance from the local, the local police to go in and just apprehend that particular person with whom, for whom they were looking. And it's like these people get mad at them deporting criminals. Like again, the they're not just deporting just illegal immigrants. They're going directly after people who've actually committed crimes, either here or back in their home country. So how is that bad to send, you know, people who murdered and raped and assaulted and sold drugs and trafficked humans back to their home countries? Not to mention, they're calling it racist, but many of the countries where these people have have migrated from have way harsher immigration policies than we do. For instance, Mexico. Mexico is very intolerant against other people illegally migrating to their country, particularly other Latinos. They will kick out an El Salvadoran or Nicaraguan or Honduran with the lickety split. But they don't say it's racist there because they're all the same people. I mean, not all the same. You get what I'm saying. They're all from the same culture, more or less. And again, if people are so mad, you ought to be mad at Clinton. You ought to be mad at the Democratic Party. But you're taking it out all out on Trump because many of these folks who make politics all their person make their personal identity all about their political views are mentally ill. And this is what gives rise to the whole Trump derangement syndrome. And as I stated, there is no recognized mental illness called Trump derangement syndrome, according to the DSM-5, or in the mental health community. But what they have recognized is that people who do have these strong political hatred on either side typically have mental health problems associated with anxiety, depression, um, obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, some of them may be on a spectrum as well, the autistic spectrum. What's up, Princess Effie? Stefan says they are sanctuary cities. They just give out driver's licenses to vote. Well, they remember that one guy from was it in Florida had got his CDL in California and didn't even know the law and ended up crashing and killing someone with his truck. He wasn't even supposed to have a CDL. Stefan says it seems like the U.S. is making moves to lock down areas to mine for precious metals. Well, that's a topic for a different day if you're talking about Greenland, unless you're talking about here in the U.S. But I know that's a topic for Greenland that we want their uh, precious minerals, like I think uranium. But yeah, man, people are getting triggered, and it's like, first of all, it's like people just saw the topic and either automatically just hated me just for the name of the topic, or assumed wanted, whatever they were going to assume. And I mean, that was kind of the point of the of the titles, to elicit interest. Duh. But people came in with these preconceived notions of, and just started attacking me. I'm like, nah, you fuck with the wrong one. Again, I'm not one of these people who make their living on YouTube, so I have to pretend to like these assholes. I'm not Look, I'm not Mr. Beast. I'm not PewDiePie. I'm not Matt Pat. I will beat your ass and I will cuss you out and I will tell you your mother sucks dick. So don't mess with me. But it but but any of my other followers know that I'm a chill dude, like, for the most part. people bring that energy. And it's like with Kevin Samuels, people used to always say, well, Kevin used to roast people. No, people brought that energy to Kevin. Kevin Samuels was mad chill on his show, just having like a when he was having like one-on-one conversations. Unless someone actually was showing him disrespect, then he would take it there with them because he wanted to keep control of his show and maintain the dominance as he should, as he's the host of his live stream. But like I said, I don't know too much about this case surrounding the new guy who got shot, Alex, whatever his name is. It Peretti, Prietti? I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Let me let me look. And everyone has their own spin on it, so that complements that. Excuse me, that compliment that messes up things even more to get a um a reliable take on it. Preddy, that's his name, Alex Preddy. They're calling it an execution, and it's like, look, where was all the outrage when that used to happen to black folks? And people used to say, just comply with the law enforcement. Comply, you won't get shot. And you know what? For the most part, they were right. If you just complied, you were not going to get, you know, hurt. But when you are disrespectful to the officers, when you try to run away, when you try to assault them, when they catch you dead to rights doing something wrong, and you want to pretend you weren't, like, you invite you invite these guys to put hands on you. And again, it's because, like I said, at the end of the day, law enforcement are people too. They're going to have their they're going to have their uh, human weaknesses just like anyone else. Like, it's hard to keep your composure every day in and day out. You got people cussing you out, trying to push you, trying to get in the way of you while you're making an arrest. Um, Even trying to throw hands at you or some, like, the guy who shot Renee Good, for instance. He had just came back to duty because he had recently been hospitalized because he was dragged by a protester's vehicle. But they don't tell you that part, depending on what news source you look at, which is why I always say you need to look at news that comes from both the left and the right. Because if you only look at it from one side, from one political side, you're going to miss stories that you wouldn't hear otherwise. And I also said this as well, is that you need to you need to mess up your news feeds on your social media. Whatever your slant is, whether you slant politically to the left or you slant politically to the right, you ought to subscribe to some stuff that is completely opposite to what you actually like, just to fuck up that timeline so it won't keep feeding you the same information. So that's why I said, like, look at stuff that you wouldn't otherwise look at, just to mess up your timeline. Like, at this point, I'm getting mostly right wing type of stuff in my news feed. So guess what I do? I subscribe to the Young Turks and to other sorts of left wing stuff, just to confuse the algorithm so it won't keep feeding me just the stuff that it thinks I want to see. That's what causes people to be in a bubble. They only get information from the side that they want to hear, and the algorithm keeps feeding that stuff, and they miss out on a lot of other things. And it makes them lose perspective on how other people can think, because all they can see is from this perspective, whether it's left or right or libertarian or whatever. Um, But yeah, it looks like everyone on the left is freaking out about Alex Preddy. Then I hear people also saying like now MAGA is against the Second Amendment. I'm like, yeah, I don't exactly think that is true. Chad, what's up? He says I personally always be well, excuse me, I personally will always be independent in everything I do. So yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, man, because I'm a political independent too. I've been independent since like I think 2006. I've switched I've switched teams so many times. When I first registered to vote when I was 18, I was Republican, but I was a liberal Republican, and yes, that did exist, liberal Republicans. Um, and then after with my dislike of Bush back then, and I started liking the guy Ralph Nader, so I switched to the Green Party because I like Ralph Nader. But I quickly realized I don't really like the Green Party. I just like Ralph Nader because the Green Party was just a little bit too cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for me. Like they were way like they were. It's funny like they were considered the radical left at that time and like back in like 2000 in the early 2000s. Now they're almost like center left. Like things have like the Democratic Party has shifted so far leftward that the Green Party isn't that radical anymore. But back 25 years ago, they would have been still considered pretty radically a pretty radical leftist political party. So I left them and joined the Democratic Party, and then I realized they're 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 just corp. I just I was like they're just too corporate bought and owned for me. I can't rock with them. So I became independent, and I've stayed that way ever since. And what I've also said is that I think more people should be independent because I think it's hard to think critically about political views when you are partisan. Uh, chances in 2000. Okay. Stefan says I'm registered independent and they sent me mail telling me I need to pick one side. Right, same here. So in Maryland, they really don't like people being politically independent here. They want you to choose one side because so in some states, you can vote in the primaries if you're independent, but in Maryland and a few other states, they don't let independents vote in the primaries. You can only vote in the general election, and I think that's pretty messed up. I know some people who are independents. What they told me they do is they will actually join a party just so they can participate in the primaries, and then they switch back to being an independent. I'm like, I'm not going through that. I'm not going to switch to a political party every time there's a presidential election just so I could cast my vote in the primary. I'll just wait to the general election because I don't think it's fair that they try to force people into a party for just for their convenience. So no, because people were trying to tell me, well, you need to pick a party because otherwise Trump's going to get into office. I'm like, actually, I don't care. That was the first Trump uh, election. The second one, I was voting for Trump anyway, so it didn't matter. I, um, but yeah, yeah, a lot of states don't encourage people to be political independents because obviously they want people to back a party, and by doing so, you can't vote in the primaries as an independent. You have to wait till the general election. So I just in Maryland, I'll just wait till the general election. I'm not going to be forced to join a party that I don't believe in just for the sake of voting in the primary. Besides that, I mean, Maryland's a blue state anyway, so I already know the team blue is going to win anyway. I'm still going to vote. Like I still voted for Trump, even though I knew that the electoral vote would go to Kamala Harris in Maryland, which it did. But it it but it still makes sense because it's just like how people say voting for a third party is a waste of a vote. By that same that's not true because by that same logic, right? By that same line of reasoning, then voting red in a blue state or voting blue in a red state means you're throwing away your vote if you're not voting for the person who's already going to win that state. That obviously, if people think that way, then it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Chaz is Ralph Nader is Bernie Sanders now. Right. Is Ralph still around? I haven't heard anything about him in a long time. But I liked Ralph back then in my those my college days. Ethics ethic places voting is a scam. No, it isn't. Vote the thing is voting you have one vote. The thing it's not a scam is what it the problem is people think that being politically active starts and ends with voting. It really doesn't. Voting is the least that you can do if you want to be a politically active citizen. You need to do more than vote. You know, you can organize at the grassroots level. You can talk to your local politicians. That's what they're there for, to represent you. They have office hours where their constituents can contact them. And if none of that works for you, you always can run for office yourself. So voting is a scam. It's just that it's the minimum of activity you can do to be politically active. It doesn't end there, it starts there. If you really want to make a difference, you have to do more than just vote if you really want to have a say in what happens. On top of that, people need to vote locally. Everyone, most people just put off voting until the presidential election, and that's not really decided by the popular vote. It's decided by the electoral vote. So if you really want a hand in things, aside from being an electoral college voter, which is also something people can apply for as well, um, then to be politically active, like I said, you need to start organizing at the grassroots levels to get things done. Now, there's been, ideas about changing how the voting system works, but that's a topic for a different day. Stefan says, I learned today the governor picks the judges for their state. Yep. That's what I'm saying. People it's so important to vote on the local level during the midterms, and most people don't. And I'm not gonna lie, the last midterm we had, I didn't vote because I just didn't care. Like I didn't care for either candidate. It was between Timu Obama, Governor Westmore, or this or this other guy who was Republican. And I just didn't care for either candidate. So I just had no interest, and I didn't know any of the other people running for the local offices at the time. So I know I sound like a hypocrite, but it was just I had complete disinterest whatsoever. But for people who are actually interested, it does behoove you to go out and vote during those midterms. Just as the electoral system started, the way we feel apprehensive about voting. Yeah, but I also like it because I understand why the founding fathers put it in place. They were scared. Look, the founding fathers know their classic literature. They know that people like Plato and Socrates were skeptical of democracy because it often just ended up being mob rules, and that democracy could degenerate into tyranny, which is why they wanted a Republican represent uh, a federal republic instead of just a, a pure democracy. On top of that, they they didn't think the common man was uh, politically astute enough to cast votes on who will lead the country, which is why they decided to put the electoral college vote in place so that there's like a buffer. And yes, there's also the case about the whole three-fifths compromise of a slave. Yeah, we know that part too. But I agree with the founding fathers. And I think this came from the ones who considered themselves Federalist. Um, I think many of the ones who considered them Federalists were skeptical of letting it of making the presidential vote a direct vote because they thought, it would be just subject to the whims of of a mob mentality. There needed to be some sort of buffer, and it was like a compromise between a direct vote or just having, um, you know, Congress select a president or whatever. So they didn't want a king, and they didn't want you know, they didn't want someone just voting in some random bumpkin. So that was the compromise with the electoral vote, and then the electoral vote evolved from that to giving representation to smaller states as well, because without the electoral vote, basically the same four states would pretty much decide the election every year. It would be basically uh, New York, Florida, Texas, and California would pretty much decide the vote every presidential election based on their size. So the electoral vote also gives representation to smaller states. But again, I do get why people are cynical about the electoral system. Steven said, I didn't vote last time either, maybe next time. Well, I voted in the last presidential election. I just didn't vote in the last midterm. And I should have, because I really don't like Westmore. But again, he was going to get elected anyway. Like, again, this is a blue state. Um, so it was almost guaranteed he was going to beat the Republican candidate. Although, I mean, we have had Republican governors like Governor Hogan, who also ran. That's another thing, another reason why Maryland, a lot of us hate our governors in Maryland because every governor in Maryland tries to run for presidential office because they they hold a seat so near to the capital that they often have presidential ambitions. Like pretty much every governor we've had in the past 20 years has made a shot for the White House. Hogan, um, er, Early, that was his name? Early. um, the Who's that guy? But yeah, I can't remember all their names, but pretty much every governor I remember in the past 20 or so years have all tried to run for the White House during the Democratic primaries and lost. And you can tell Wes Moore has presidential ambitions too. Timu Obama, like I like to call him. But yeah, getting back to Ice, man, like I said, I'm not going to defend them if they do something wrong. But at the same time, I realize that it's becoming increasingly frustrating for them to do their job when you have protesters who go above and beyond protesting to stop them because these people have it already in their mind that ICE is an illegitimate agency of the government, that they can do whatever they want to thwart them. And like I said, this harkens back to what I was saying an hour ago about these white women using their privilege um, to try to stop these officers. Because again, like I said, most of the time, white women weaponize the law against men, and I will take that to the wall. It is the case that white women often weaponize the law against men. White women weaponize the law against men. both black men and white men, or Latino men, all men, particularly in family court, divorce court, criminal court. They used to get in their way with a little boo hoo hoo. And so now they think they can use that same privilege against the very law that they weaponize against other men. And they're finding that doesn't work. So I like, and again, I don't celebrate anyone dying because again, I think that's macabre to celebrate um, anyone's death. I do think it's a tragedy, and what I think is these were avoidable accidents because these people are throwing themselves in dangerous way. They're making it dangerous for the officers, and they're making it dangerous for themselves when some of these officers act out of frustration. And then you have some military personnel claiming that ICE is poorly trained. I can't speak towards that because I don't know ICE's training. I don't know how they train. But I mean, I, it would be unfair to compare it to military training because pretty much law enforcement personnel doesn't have the same training we get in the military unless unless they're like an elite police unit or they go to SWAT or something like that. So I can't speak to their training because I don't know. I do know that many law enforcement from across the country do come out to Maryland to places like Beltsville, where they have a huge training facility, and they often train federal law enforcement and SWAT teams, stuff like that. I think there's some training done down in Quantico, Virginia as well. But I can't speak to their training. I'll leave that to the I'll leave that to some of these people I've seen, some of these talking heads I've seen on YouTube that come from a combat arms position in the military. I was in the military, but I didn't serve in any combat arms position. So some of them come from combat arms and from special operations, and they can speak towards the level of training that these federal law officers have or lack thereof. But what I will say is, again, if these people were in compliance, it would be less headaches for the officers and for the protesters. But thinking you can impede an investigation just because you think it's illegitimate is not that's not the answer. Get some water. So, but like I said, I'm not going to if it does turn out to be the case that this guy Alex Preddy was terminated, then I won't defend it. But I don't know enough on the subject yet to say whether that's definitely the case or not. Nor am I going to necessarily believe that MAGA is turning this back on the Second Amendment to because they don't want certain people to have guns now. Um, Whatever. All that's going to do is create like a bunch of people flocking to the gun stores. Steve Stefan says I saw something about the attorney general or someone was helping arrange some protests. You talking about you talking about the Minnesota attorney general? I haven't heard anything like that. Um, but if an attorney general is organizing protests against ICE, that seems a bit unprofessional. if not a dereliction of duty. um, but I can't say. Tim Walz is stepping down as governor. He won't be running for a third term. Um, and he's a bit of a clown. My safety net says the situation is very complicated. Yeah, it seems like a quagmire. So I don't know where to suss out what is true and what isn't. My point is just that I understand that people are people regardless of what their position is in the government or in law enforcement. And these some of these protesters need some antidepressants or some antipsychotic medication. The way they acting out there, um, and they can make a they can put a officer in a way in a way that they'll get so frustrated that they might shoot them. But I'm not going to defend that. I will understand why, but I wouldn't defend it. Now, again, with the Alex Preddy situation, I don't know if it was unjustified or not because I haven't looked into it. And the problem is because this is new information, everyone already has a slant on it before we have all the details. It was just like the Renee Good. As soon as I heard about it, it was from some chick um, who was, randomly, talking with me, and and I was like, and she mentioned it, and I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yeah, but she made it sound like it was a definite murder or something. And then when I looked more into it, I was like, no, this wasn't. This was justified under self defense. Like I said, I don't know what the Alex Preddy situation was, but with Renee Good, that was a matter of self defense. Like I was like, take away them harassing him during his investigation and being disrespectful to him. Um, the fact of the matter is, when she sped off, like he was under the reasonable assumption that she could hit him with the car, and so he shot at her. That is self defense, and like I said, self defense doesn't have to be perfect for it to be self defense. But a reasonable person could understand that he thought that she might hit him with the car. So now, like I said, with this Alex Preddy situation, I don't know what's going on. And with the person who got their hand blown off or shot off, whatever, I don't know the situation with that either. So I will look into that. But usually, better information comes after a few days when they can suss out the details. Because usually, what these news sources do and what these content creators do is they all rush out. They all rush because I've done it myself. They all rush to give you the information as soon as it drops to be one of the first people to say, yeah, we released this information. But typically, when you get information as soon as it happens, is usually quite inaccurate. It's more accurate after a few days after details have been made, um, and that and that those in power feel comfortable releasing that information to the public. So Stefan says they're all under investigation from the FBI. Who you talking about? The ICE agents that are involved in the shooting, or Panda says good night. He's haven't listened for a while now. Appreciate it. My safety net says I feel like rather than calming the situation, Tim Walz is doing more gaslighting. He's part of Tim Walz is part of the problem. He's definitely part of the problem. He's he's not been managing that state well. I mean, with all the Somali fraud and shit, like he's part of the problem. Stephen says those protesters can't control their emotions either. Absolutely, and that's sort of my point. Is they still need to be in compliance. Like you can peacefully protest, but to think that you can impede a law enforcement personnel's investigation um, or try to stop them from arresting a suspect, or that you can put hands on them, or when they try to detain you, that you can flee from arrest. Those are crimes. And I got into it with someone I had to ban from my channel who used to be on here for 2 years because I found out he was just, he's been a concern troll. Like since 2024, he just came in here to try to undermine things I would say with these democratic talking points, as if he was getting paid by the MSNBC to to say these things on my live. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, he was some black boomer. I fucking hate boomers, man. And yeah, there's a difference between Gen X and boomers. We are not the same. But yeah, he was some old black boomer. He just came in here just being a nuisance, and he knew what he was doing, but he would pretend like he was cool with me or whatever. He was just concerned trolling. It's a nice little tactic, but you know, it came to a head when he insulted one of my moderators. So that's when I finally banned him. Jay Dizzle says local law enforcement should be there controlling the protesters, but local and state government won't let them. Yeah, exactly. That was a point I made earlier, probably before you came onto the live. But that was a point that I've made earlier, is that these these ICE investigations would go much more smoothly if they had the cooperation of the local government and the local state and city governments. But since they have to go in there alone against the wishes of that state or city, like it becomes completely antagonistic. And then when they do apprehend people, like like they end up rounding up everyone in the midst of just finding this one person. When if they could have just got this one person, like say local law enforcement detained that suspect, and then all ICE has to do is pick them up on the detainer, like they do, like so, like say for instance, like someone has a warrant for their arrest, and then local police detain them, and then the state or federal just comes in and picks them up from that detainer. Like that would go a lot more smoothly than them having to actually go into these neighborhoods and find these people, putting the officers at risk, and then causing all this hoopla with these protesters and stuff. Like because simply by local and state government refusing to work with them, it's not going to stop them from coming in because they still are the federal government, which supersedes them. My safety net says all these people are being paid. Well, if you're referring to the, like I said, the guy that was a concern troll, I don't know what his deal was. I think he was just a, a I think he was just um, a cantankerous bitch ass old man that had nothing better to do than to bother me on my live stream. But he would come on, but dude used to come on my lives talking like he was Roland Martin or some shit. If you know who Roland Martin is. Stefan says I was a sheep when I was younger too, so I can't get too mad at them young bucks for not knowing. I mean, same here. Like I said, I was a liberal. The difference is, I'm still, the funny thing. I've said this before. I never stopped who I was from like 30 so years ago. I keep telling people I'm still the same 1995 liberal. It's just that the party has moved left of me, but I'm still that 1995 liberal. It's just the party moved left of me. So where I am is now on the right. But I consider myself a classical liberal, which again, in today's political atmosphere, makes you right winged. But and often it is the case that many conservatives started off, somewhat left in their youth. and then they become more realistic, and they shift to the right when you have a family, when you have a say, when you have a say in the community, you have a stake in how things go. It tends to make you more moderate. Uh, Truck and Terrapin 7706 says all of them aren't paid. New signal chat leaks are wild though. People connected are going to face serious charges. Huh. Jay Dizzle says that's all it would take, cooperation. That's what's needed. Yeah, a lot of these issues with ICE and dealing with these protesters and stuff like that would all have been avoided if the local and state governments had worked alongside them. Like it doesn't make sense because they're still going to apprehend these people whether or not they work alongside them. Is just it just makes the job harder. But sitting there and just you know turning your turning your head and acting as if, well, we're not going to be a part of this, you're still not helping. You're just actually making things worse by not assisting them, because like I said, they could easily pick them up and detain them and hold them on detainer for ICE to apprehend, and then they face their day in court. But they're not going to stop them from apprehending them. I mean, ICE is currently hiring more and more people to be patrol agents. Like they're offering like like I think it was like $100,000. So if any of you want to do it, and as far as I know, there's no age restriction either. Look, you need a job, you got a clean record, you might want to apply for ICE. Shit, I've considered it. Like I said, the girl was so bad at me with because I could see she was trying to test me. She was like, "Well, yeah, ICE is hiring," because I told her I used to be in the military. I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "I've considered it." I was like, "I don't think I want to be in law enforcement though." I said, "If anything, I would go back into the military because the DC National Guard is hiring folks up to the age of 60 if they're still fit and prior service." And she was like, "Oh yeah, the National Guard is blah blah blah." I'm like, "Shut up, lady." And of course, she was some little middle-aged white woman. And again, that harkens to what I was saying earlier. The only people that I can the only white people I can conclusively say enjoy white privilege are white women, because they can weaponize the law against any man, regardless of race. But they're seeing the limits of their but these Karens are seeing the limits of their white privilege when it comes to attacking the very law that they use to weaponize against other men. It doesn't work that way for them. Uh, my safety net says not all of them are being paid, but the instigators are being paid. Somebody's being paid. I'm trying to get paid. Can I get paid? Shoot, I want to get paid. Shoot, I need I need a new trip. I'm trying to take some trips with the wifey. You know what I'm saying? Let me get paid, because people already accuse me of being a shill ever since I've thrown my support to Trump 2 years ago on my channel. They was like, "Oh, you just a shill. You getting paid?" I'm like, "Where? Where am I getting paid? Let me get paid. I would take the payment." But I mean, I know you're not talking about me. I'm just saying, I do agree that with that amongst these protests, there's obviously some sort of financial backing to it. In many of these sort of things, there's often some money back in it, like the Boston. I mean, not the Boston. Sorry, during the Tea Party. Remember the Tea Party guys? Um, there was some financial backers in that. Or remember Occupy Wall Street? There was some financial backers to that, and those were both left and right wing protests, um, both against Obama. So he had people from the left and people from the right, protesting um, his policies. And yeah, there was financial backing for those, and I'm pretty sure there's financial backing right now with these anti-ICE protesters. Because like, how are they? I mean, look, they're organized in watch groups, and like I said, like the Chicago police commissioner said, if he said if people were organizing those sort of watch groups to follow and identify police officers, um, that they would be considered a threat to them, right? Um, but these anti-ICE protesters seem to get away with that sort of stuff. But you couldn't do that. Like he's like, you couldn't do that to like Chicago PD or like state police or something like that. Like they would consider that like a actual like tangible threat to them, and I should as well. Jay Simpson, what's up? He says, "Do you know all it takes?" He said, "When there's an ICE retainer and the cops actually uh, held them and turned them over, ICE would be there at all." Did I read that correctly? I think there. Well, I think we get the gist of what you were saying. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you're saying what I'm saying. Like if the local and state governments work with them, and thank you for the gift, by the way. I did see that. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, if they just held them on, held held the suspects on retainer, because like I said, the people that they are rounding up are people who are already wanted for crimes, or they're either wanted for crimes or they've already committed crimes in the country and then were released back into the general population, into the general public or whatever, or they're wanted for crimes back in their home countries. So either way, these people are criminals, not just for the fact that they are here, that they are living here illegally, but the fact they've already committed crimes or are wanted for crimes. Like, why are people defending that? Like people who have, like the so-called Maryland man, a guy who was a freaking MS-13. People say, well, there's no proof of that. First of all, he had the tats, and he was identified by a CI, a confidential informant, and even the guy even told even the CI even revealed what set the guy was from and with the MS-13s, and the fact that he couldn't be sent back to El Salvador because he had he he had enemies there. What Think about it. What average citizen has enemies back in their home country? If people who are living that street life, that's who. That's why he couldn't be sent back to El Salvador because he was an MS-13, and people kept trying to. I was like the hoops that people were trying to jump through to try to avoid saying that he was MS-13 while acknowledging that he shouldn't be sent back to his home country because he had enemies there was astounding to me. I was like, you're not going to have enemies in your own country if you're just an average citizen. Obviously, he was a gang member and he had rivals back in El Salvador. Then this guy was a wife beater, and he was caught at the local at the Home Depot with other people allegedly human trafficking. So he was a dirtbag. But the Democratic Party through all their weight to defend this guy, even flew down to El Salvador to have him released and shit. It's like this is who they want to defend. My safety net says I was too, but I don't know what is going on with the party today. Yeah, like I said, I'm just an independent. I'm gonna stay independent. Jay Dizzle said how the immigration issue went so far left with the Democrats. Obama, Clinton wanted illegals out, but Trump gets elected, and all of a sudden they went off a cliff. Sad, really. Yeah, and that's the thing is that they all act like this is Trump's doing. First of all, if you want to hate, like if you want to hate a Republican president for this stuff, hate Bush because he's the one who brought the Patriot Act into law in 2003, which established the Department of Homeland Security and established ICE. So how are you going to blame the preceding president for basically following out what another president started? On top of that, it didn't start with Bush. It started with Clinton in 1996. Let me look up this act because I want people, because I know some people don't believe me. They just say, "Oh, you're just trying to make it seem like the Democrats are bad or whatever." No, this is real, and I want to give like exact info on this, if you don't mind. Yeah, it was called the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. The IIRA significantly transformed U.S. immigration law. Key provisions: increased enforcement. The IRA introduced harsher penalties for undocumented immigrants, including the establishment of the expedited removal process, allowing for rapid deportation without a court hearing. Hmm. Long-term consequences. Immigrants who overstay their visas face severe penalties, including a 3-year bar to reentry if overstaying by 180 to 365 days, and a 10-year bar if overstaying by more than 365 days. Border control improvements. The act aimed to enhance border security through increased staffing, barriers, and technology. Impact on legal status. The IRA expanded the categories of crimes that could lead to deportation, making it easier to remove legal permanent residence for minor offenses. That's right. So that happened under. So think people are saying Trump can't do that. That's illegal. Oh, really? Well, according to this act, it is legal, and this was done by Clinton. You could remove legal permanent residence for minor offenses. Overall, the IIRA was designed to deter illegal immigration and impose stricter penalties on undocumented immigrants, but it has also been criticized for its punitive nature and the potential for unintended consequences. And that was enacted in 1996 under Bill Clinton. So if you're gonna be mad at Clinton. He started the shit. My sickness is just a matter of time they will be picked up. Yep, exactly. They just make it harder by making them go in and pick them up instead of having the local police just pick them up and they just get them on a retainer. Stephen says basically the mess is costing the U.S. Yep. Jay says ICE hates tracking these people down. It's so dangerous. Yeah, this is dangerous work, and people don't realize this is dangerous for them. They look at these people like they're bullies. This is dangerous work. Some of these people are connected to that street life. Everyone sees it as like, oh, they just going in and arresting women and children. Some of these people are wanted criminals, violent offenders. He says to he said publicly we prefer to take them in custody. Exactly. My next says Obama deported more people. Why is it different with Trump? Because because of political bias. That's why. Jay, this is true. White savior syndrome. So appreciate it, brother. Thank you, Jay. Stefan says we have the chosen whites to get the real privilege. I missed that boat. Rules for them and not for me is there. Yeah, like I said, the only ones I can conclusively say really have white privilege in this country are white women. What up like middle class, like upper middle class white women enjoy a lot of uh, privilege. That sounds like a good bill to me. What happened to the Democratic Party? Nothing happened. It's just that people put on blinders, Jay. Like All of this was fine when the Democrats were doing it, but they hate when the other side when the other team wins. So they cast aspersions on the other side and act like it was evil and they did all this stuff. Even like I said, this happened under Clinton. Like if you heard, I'm tempted to bring up one of the old uh, debates between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama back in 2008. If you heard them stumping on the campaign, they sounded like MAGA. The stuff they used to say, like how they want to be hard on crime, how they wanted to get rid of illegal immigrants, all the stuff you would think someone in the MAGA crowd would say, they talked that very way back in 2008. And it's so funny to me that people have such short term memory when it comes to politics. Like no one thought it was a problem hearing Hillary and Obama talk tough on crime, on illegal immigration, on drugs, all the stuff that you would now associate with the MAGA crowd or the conservatives, right? They were talking that tough talk. I might bring up one of those if you guys want to hear it. I'll risk the monetization and play one of those speeches briefly. Jesus says they are letting people in because they need the votes. That's another situation. Like they do. Originally, I thought that was just like a bad conspiracy theory, but like all conspiracy theories, they're either true or false. And I think there is some merit to that. They look the the Democratic Party has become, and like I said, this is the funny thing of being um, involved in government and politics since I was uh, like 17. The Democratic Party is coming off as aloof and elitist, but back in the 90s, that was the Republican Party. They were the ones who were seen as aloof and elitist, and they are trying to be this big tent party to embrace everyone, but they're forcing men out. They're forcing white people and conservatives out because back in the 90s there was still a lot of conservatives in the Democratic Party. There was still a lot of white people in the Democratic Party. Um, and now like it's like they pretty much want to just cater to ethnic minorities and to effeminate men and the LGBTQ. So Jay says, as an American, I break small laws. I spend time in jail. If I were illegal, I'd get off scot free. Right. Not only that, hey, you can get your Snap card. Like, look, this is what really made me bad 2 years ago. I'm like, it's like, I got elderly family members who saw their EBT benefits cut, and this is what EBT was meant for. It wasn't meant for strong, healthy people like me. It was meant for elderly and disabled people. They got their EBT, their food stamp cut to like what, 30, $40 a month. I'm like, how the fuck is auntie so and so gonna live off this shit for a month? Because my mom told me like, how some of my family members were getting their food benefits cut. I'm like, what the hell? And then the next year, I hear about all these illegal immigrants getting SNAP. I was like, first of all, they're not even citizens. Why are they getting SNAP benefits? And two, why did they find people with receipts with like $10,000 worth of cash and food benefits on their EBT card? Then you had one particularly annoying Venezuelan guy who was making TikTok videos making fun of Americans, saying you guys are stupid working. Why I use your tax money to get all these benefits? Look all the money I get. He was one of the people that got rounded up and sent back to Venezuela, by the way. And a lot they were saying that there was a lot of people who were detained with him who hated his guts. I'm pretty sure they beat the shit out of him because he was talking so much shit for like almost a year on TikTok, making videos talking about how smart he is because he can get money for free while all you suckers in America got to work for it and all sort of stuff. It's like, dude, okay, first, like, just pragmatically, okay, if you getting away with something that you know you're not supposed to be doing, why are you making TikTok videos about it? You sitting there throwing it in people's face, celebrating the fact that you getting over on the government, on the taxpayers' dime, and you're trying to teach other illegal immigrants how to do the same thing on your videos. How brazen is that? Jada says blue states are letting illegals vote in local elections. It's only time till they try to let them vote in federal elections. Right. Um. Yeah. This is why they want to now have voters present ID when they go to the elections, and people are crying and saying, "Oh, this is racist. This is what they try to do to keep black people from voting." We're talking about, yeah. I'll acknowledge that, but that was 60 years ago when you're talking about places in the deep South where most people didn't have photo ID back then. We're now talking about 2026. Most people have photo ID of some sort. As a matter of fact, you need to have a photo ID as a functional adult because in many places, like in the state of Maryland, for instance, like if you don't have a photo ID on you, it's not a crime because some people say, "Oh, you got to have a ID on you because it's a crime to go outside without a." It's not a crime. Like I was explaining to my friend, it's not a crime if you don't have ID. What is the issue is if you get stopped for questioning by a police officer and you don't have a photo ID to present them, then they have to take you. They have to they have to arrest you because they have no way to identify you. So every every functional adult should have a photo ID. It doesn't have to be a driver's license. It could be a state ID. It could be a learner's permit. Whatever. It could be a passport. But no functional adult should not should be without a photo ID of some sort. So I don't see why that's a problem for voting. And then people say, well, voter fraud is very rare. Is it though? And even if it's rare, that doesn't mean you still don't prepare for it. It's like harking back to my 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 discussion about plane crashes and how statistically rare they are. They're very rare, but that doesn't mean you don't prepare for it. You still prepare for it, even though it's rare, right? So just because voter fraud may be rare doesn't mean you shouldn't try to prepare for it to lessen the chance of it happening. Jay says, "How do I get $35 a month from food stamps when illegals get 5 times that?" Exactly. Like I said, like it's crazy, man. Like they were getting food and cash benefits on the EBT card. They were getting they were getting they were getting priority for uh for housing. It is ridiculous, and you couldn't but think that, oh, they are actually trying to set them up to replace other Americans. And it was definitely this is why a lot of black people don't defend it because they saw them pushing them in the black community, taking up the resources that were supposed to go to those foundational black Americans. This is why most black people aren't defending the Somalis. The Somalis don't even consider themselves black. So all right, fuck you then. You gotta like, mm-mm. But now when their feet are to the fire, now they were like, oh, we're black too. No, no, no. Keep that same energy. You guys said you weren't black. You guys said you were Arabic. Keep that same energy. You're not black. So what time is it? Oh, it's late. I didn't realize it was so late. But yeah, man, it's it's crazy, and I know, like I said, I know this triggers a lot of people, but like I said, I won't defend the indefensible. So if it does turn out that this new situation with Alex Preddy, that the guy was shot in cold blood by an ICE agent, I won't defend it. However, I will say that what's going on with with these protesters are making it very uh, are making it very hostile, a very hostile situation for both the protesters and the ICE agents who are just trying to do their job. I know people don't agree with what they're doing; they hate it, and some people even think what they're doing is illegitimate. But these, but they're not in the position to make that call, and to think you're going to stop someone's investigation or arrest of a suspect. You're you're now committing a crime at this point. And like I said, if you had protesters doing this to any other sort of law enforcement personnel, that law enforcement personnel would have dealt with them handily. ICE allows a lot of things to slide, and as far as whether they lack considerable training or not, I have to be agnostic on that because I don't know their training methods. And again, when I was in the military, I didn't serve in a combat arms position, so I can't speak on the level of combat skills that these uh, federal law enforcement get um, compared to what we would get in say in the Army or the Marines. So Jay says in my state it's an arrestable offense to not carry ID over 18. Now it's all we don't follow your laws. Also, it's actually an arrestable offense. So yeah, like I was saying in Maryland, it's not. So it's not that. So how do I put it? So it's not that you it's illegal to not have to carry ID. It's just that it's you will be arrested if you are called, like if a police brings you in for questioning, like if they stop you to question you and you can't present them ID, then that's arrestable. But it's not a crime in itself. So I guess it's a little bit more nuanced than where you live, where it's automatically an arrestable offense. Like in itself, it's not. I don't know how to I don't know how to word that correctly, but like I said, you can go outside with ID because I mean, obviously, like when I go running every morning, I don't have my my wallet on me, right? So that's not an arrestable offense going out to go for a jog, without my ID. Like, sir, you going out for a run? Yes, you got your ID on you? No. Bring it here. Bring it here. No, wait, I got 1 more mile left. Make it quick. Sorry, but no, but no. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's being outside in Maryland um, without an ID is an arrestable offense in itself. But you will be arrested if, like I said, if you are stopped and questioned by police and you don't have ID to present them. If that makes sense. Paul Ryan says Simpson right, not coming out without any type of identification is like going out the house without a belt and good for your safety too. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. Uh, Jay says 20 million. Let me separate because people are gonna get confused. Jay Dizzle and Jay Simpson. Jay Dizzle says 20 million came in under Biden. Of 1% of them are hardcore killers. That's 200,000 people if I did my math right. Well, no, they actually broke down the numbers last year. I just don't remember the numbers, so I'm not gonna miss. I don't want to misquote it, but it on the previous live stream I did last year, I was reading it verbatim, and it was shocking. Like, and but to be fair, not all of them came in during Biden's administration. They came in like in subsequent years leading up to the Biden administration. But it was an astounding amount of people whom they lost track of uh, after they basically melded into the general population. People who have had convictions of serious crimes. Uh, Jay Simpson is over 18. You must have legal ID. Yeah. Paul says, "Yep, like detained. I guess it would be called." He said, "Yeah, that's a good point too." Jay says, "50 years old. You better have a house key and state ID." Yeah, like I said. So the reasons for not telling people for saying people don't need a, a, um, a photo ID nowadays to go to election don't hold for like the reasons 60 and 70 years ago when it was used as a tactic in the deep south to keep basically poor rural uh, black voters from being able to vote, right? So like a lot of poor black folks or rural folks often didn't have ID back in those days, so it would have kept them from being able to vote. But nowadays, everyone has ID. Everyone. So it so trying to use that historical example of of governmental racism doesn't hold in 2026. Truck and Terrapin says they can't just ID you; they need RAS, or you have to have committed a crime in order to see your ID unless you're driving. Well, yeah, that's so like I said in Maryland. Like I said, I can't speak for other states. I can only speak for Maryland. But it's not an arrest. It's not a crime to go outside without ID because, like I said, legally, if that were the case, and legally, I'm I'm breaking the law every time I go for a run in the morning. Like, sir, are you jogging without an ID? Um, no. Let me see ID, sir. Shit. No, I'm joking. No, but you get what I'm saying. Like there's common sense built into it. Like basically, it's if you get stopped and questioned by a police officer, you have to present them ID, or they will take you in by law because they don't know who you are. You could be someone wanted for a crime, for instance. So it makes sense that if they stop and question you, you need to present them ID. And by the way, I have seen police while I'm running. They've never stopped me for ID. If anything, like especially like a few times, they would just wave at me. Or once I was wearing an army shirt and I was running, the guy was like, um, he's like, Are you were in the army? I said yes. He's like, thank you for your service. So 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 you get what I'm saying. Paul says, I think the best thing would be to is hit record on your phone and cooperate. In my opinion, yeah, like that again. I think most of us common sense agree to the same thing. Just be in compliance. Now, will that stop everything? No, but most most times than none, a lot of stuff can be avoided with law enforcement if you just comply. And this is again what parents used to teach their black children all the time: is don't disrespect the police, just comply with them. That's it. Wookie says, "Hey, for a $20 donation, what's your dream car? A black Lamborghini." I don't know about you, but when I was a kid in the '80s, they used to have all those little magazines, for like teenagers and preteens, and it would have all those sports cars. And you was you would swear I was like a little suburban white kid. I used to have like the little pictures of all the sports cars on my wall: Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche. I think Mustangs too, but mostly like the European sports cars. And the Lamborghini was always the sexiest out of all three of them to me. But Lamborghini, man, you couldn't tell me nothing. You couldn't tell me nothing. And matter of fact, if I got it, if I got that Lamborghini, the first thing I would do, I would pull up. I would ride to my cousin's house and start playing Computer Love just from that scene in Menace to Society. I don't know if you ever seen that movie. The song Computer Love. Errol, 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 Computer Love. But yeah, he pulled up and got the girl's number. He's like, "Oh, what's up?" He said, "What, you trying to get in my way?" He said, "Yeah, I might be trying to get in your way. What's up?" She's like, "Oh, you like getting in people's way, huh?" Anyway, but yeah, black Lamborghini. I don't know what model specifically, but black Lamborghini. Stick manual shift. I, I I'm not gonna ruin that car with an automatic. That has to have a stick shift. Pause. But yeah, stick shift, and I'm playing computer love when I roll up in that joint. Anyway, back to the subject. Uh, so Jay says I have voted for years, and the first thing they ask for is your ID. So they don't in Maryland. So I mean, you present ID or whatever, but usually because if you're already enrolled in the system, all you have to do is give them your name, and they pull up your name in the system. So you don't have to. So you actually don't have to show ID here in Maryland because if you're already registered to vote, you're already in their system. So you you tell them your name, and they pull it up in the system for you to see that you're already a registered voter in the state. Pause and respect that sub. Thanks. uh, Jesus said, just show your ID. How hard is that? It's really not. It's in 2026. It's really not. I mean, shoot, people show ID just to get like discounts at the movies nowadays. You show your veterans ID or your student ID, so you can get that $2-3 off your movie, right? You show your veterans ID to get your veteran discount on Veterans Day, so you can get that free meal, right? So how hard is that? People have a student ID, veteran ID, driver's license, learner's permit, state ID, passport. It's not that hard. Jay Simpson says if you're stopped, they ask for ID. If you don't have it, give your information, and 99% of the time you're fine. Yeah, that's probably true. If you like, again, it all works to being compliant and respectful. Even though they can take you in if you don't have an ID, most likely they're not going to do that unless you were already doing something sketchy, and they was like, let me see ID, and then you acting belligerent like, I, why you gotta see my ID? What's the problem, officer? Do you have ID or not? I'm just saying. I mean, why you harassing me? I ain't do nothing. All right, get him. You coming in with us, sir? What? I ain't do nothing. I ain't do nothing. Well, I thought it was America. I'm sorry. Ain't this America? I thought it was America. Ain't this America? I thought this was America. Pause as entitlement. Yeah. what did what did Jay get? Oh, is that Porsche 911's sexy ass car? Yes, they are. The Porsche 911. Yeah, yeah, they are. And what Porsche did Will Smith have in the first movie for the first Bad Boys? That one I really like. I don't know what model that was, but I really like the Porsche he had in the first Bad Boys. It was either Bad Boys One or Bad Boys Two. Don't be mad. I think they're gonna make another one. I think they're gonna make a. How many is there now? Four. I think they're about to make a fifth one. I'm talking about Bad Boys. They're gonna be on crutches. Bad boy. What you gonna do? Like, come on, they're getting too old for this shit. But yeah, whatever Porsche he had in that movie, that shit was hot. Did you what you say about my mama? A great movie. I just Jay says I grew up in the ghetto and gang life never called me entitled. Right. Jay, this is what foul language. It, I yeah, the AI is being overactive. I don't think ass is foul language, but I guess because you said sexy ass, I'll say sexy ass all the time. Show me a thick Latina. I'm gonna say sexy. It's not. Pauses the word asses. I think is why I did that. Yeah, it's overreacting. And Mike Lowry. But yeah, guys, I'm about to go. But yeah, am I still gonna get that $20, bro? I know he was joking. Wookie 48275. But I mean, I'll take the $20 donation. Sure enough. Matter of fact, tag, I actually forgot to put a target goal for the stream. So guys, if you don't know, so what I do, I try now is I try to do like a target goal for like either gifts or super chats, and then when I hit that goal, I will teach like a martial arts technique. And so you can go back to last week when I did hit my goal, and so I taught a technique, so people don't think I'm BSing. But yeah. But anyway, stay tuned for the next live. I'm about to get off. It's late. I get up at 4:20, so I'm way over time here to catch some Z's. But I did have a long nap. But appreciate it, Jay. Thank you, bro. Um, and be on the lookout. Still am planning to do a live with the wife so she can talk about all the places she's visited. She's actually been in more places than me now, so I'm kind of envious of that. So stay tuned for that, guys. Appreciate you guys rocking with. Thank you. Take care, man. Be safe in that ice if you live on the East Coast. See you.